I would like to debate somebody on this. Would be very, like, how are they still useful? We just saw, like, every, like, war footage I've seen recently, whether it be Syria, whether it be even Iraq, whether it be, like, Nagorno-Karabakh or whatever, every time there's, like, a tank, you just see it get blown up by, like, a UAV missile. Or, like, a RPG. You're never going to have these, like, big-ass giant tank battles, because all you have, all you need is literally a drone with, like, a C4 on it. We got a nice little modern tank. What is this, a T-70, T-80, T-90? Boom, dead. Where do you hide? You're in an open field. Where do you go? All right. Let's watch a second thought video. Why does the U.S. spend so much on the military? It supports jobs in America. Congressmen want to get reelected, so they vote to increase military funding. So needless weapons of war need to be overproduced to have a need for those workers to have a job, because if you defund those factories, those workers will lose jobs, and then they will no longer vote for the politician. A lot of towns in Ohio are like that still, sadly. Eisenhower kind of preached about this. The military, he did preach about this, but he also, blew up the military spending. So yeah, he didn't really practice what he preached, or maybe he realized it too late. But he also did inflate the budget drastically, and then he's like, "Well, you guys better look out for this one." But yes, that's one aspect. Then we have America likes to wave its big dick around, spreading freedom. AKA, corporate rights. Wherever we can make money, America goes in and then enforces its policies via a strong man that they might put in. So then the strong man can then enforce some sort of laws that are positive towards international corporations. And it's definitely international corporations. But, does it help local people sometimes? Yes, but does it also hurt people? Like, in Iran, when they put in a dictator? Forgot the prince or whatever, the king. Yeah, America likes to have fun. To ensure political donors, may have more money to donate to politicians. So they rely on international businesses in poor regions. Whether it be oil companies, whether it be rare minerals. Anyways, let's continue. Why does the U.S. military spend so much? Even though I kind of summed it up right there. I wonder if we can learn something else. Also, military bases. Very important. Military bases. But that kind of touches around the first point of having influence in other countries where, corporations
It shouldn't
matter.
come as a surprise to anyone that the United States has the largest military in the world by far. As of 2019, the U.S. military budget accounted for almost 40% of the entire world's military spending, with the U.S. spending more money than the next 10 nations combined. This data comes from a new...
That is ridiculous. There you go, boom. What's the best case for not spending or cutting spending for the military? We have the highest military within in the world, and if you combine the next 10 nations together, we still have more. Can we go to the next 5 instead of the next 10? You can cut it in half. You can use all that money for education, healthcare. Oh, what?
By SIPRI. You can find the full document in the description below. The report lays out in detail the accelerated military spending of recent years, including the US's massive jump from just under $700 billion to $738 billion.
And again, we're not in a war. The spending has not died down at all since, I don't know, Vietnam, the Gulf War, I think, or something like that. I mean, I want to say World War II, but I'm pretty sure it died down a little bit after World War II, and then like a couple of months later, picked back up. So, I don't want to be called out for that, but I know since definitely after Vietnam, we went up and up and up.
Increase alone is more than most countries spend on their military budget. But the United States isn't alone. Military spending has been on the rise around the world. As usual, the US is leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. But what's going on here? Why is worldwide military spending increasing? And why does the US spend
Because
so
countries
much
are
money on
insecure.
theirs? As with most questions, to answer this one
Also,
properly,
if other countries see another country, i.e., America, constantly build up its military and constantly throw its influence around, you don't think the other countries are gonna then find a need to do that too, to build up their own militaries? A good solution would be for everybody to just kind of stop building up their militaries, and hopefully the other countries follow suit. America could easily hold off for improving their military for a couple of years. I'm sure, do some R&D in the background. I'm not saying cut it off completely. I'm just saying, stop a couple of missions here, stop a couple of missions there, focus on R&D for the most part, cut the budget in half for, I don't know, 5 years, and see how other countries react. Maybe positively, maybe negatively. We don't know. But I wouldn't put my money on it now. Maybe like 10 years ago, I would have said that's a good move. But now, I think China is probably the biggest threat right now, because China is in a financial, in the financial stability. God, why can't I phrase it properly? It is financially stable now, and financially strong enough to compete properly with America in the military sense. And for a long time, they have been pushed around, and China does not like that. Okay? No country likes that, but, America's been picking out on China for what, God knows what reason. Their biggest trade partner. But the biggest thing to prevent wars is keeping trade relations strong. Once trade relations begin breaking, that's when wars become likely, because both countries have less to lose. So instead of producing guns, the harder the gun, the more weapons we produce, the less likelihood of war. No. The better the trade relations, the less likelihood of war. That's what they should focus on.
we need to go back in time for a bit of context.
World War II.
After World War II, the United States was in a fairly strong position to assume
the
the title
only
of the
country.
world's greatest superpower. Thanks
Well,
to our
the Soviet
geography,
Union.
the U.S. had been mostly
But it was
isolated
also
from the
destroyed
conflict
by
abroad.
the war.
We had done our part in bombing Japanese cities into oblivion, but our own military and industrial hubs were left intact. The war had devastated most of Europe, and this meant that these countries needed to spend huge sums of money to rebuild their shattered cities. The United States had no such problem. The resources we would have spent rebuilding the nation could instead be pumped into the military, strengthening our nation's already powerful forces. This privileged position of not having been nuked or firebombed gave America the chance to become a sort of world police force, defending our allies from aggressors, allowing them to spend their money on infrastructure rather than their militaries, and deterring enemies from attacking in the first place. With the rapid rebuilding of Russia and the ascendancy of the Soviet Union, suddenly the US had a problem.
That's also part of America's fault why the Soviet Union started building up. It's like they treated the Soviet Union as like the biggest enemy. Instead of like, oh, you helped us beat the Nazis? All right, we'll be kind of friendly towards you. Let's do trade relations. Let's do this. But like Churchill was a big fucking instigator of this too. He was like, oh, these guys are the biggest fucking assholes. I know they helped us beat Nazi Germany. To be fair, the Soviet Union grabbed land and stuff, so not the best for. I'm not excusing the Soviet Union here, but I'm just saying to antagonize, to have an enemy right away is just a bad plan for world peace, and for military spending in this case. I feel like if they should have just done a cool down period of like, hey, we just went through a giant war. How about we chill? How about we just chill, guys? Let's properly rebuild. Let's not build any weapons. But, that's not how politics or reality works, If a country's in first place, another country's always got to be in second place. And the country in second place feels overshadowed. So it needs to step its game up. And that's what's happening right now in China. And America, might soon become the second. We don't know. But there's in the next 50 years, there might be a high chance of conflict. I hope not. It might be like what happened in the Cold War. You might have these like regional wars here and there. Oh, well, you might have like a war in Korea, which kind of sucks. But something like that might break out. Maybe like Philippines or some shit. It's going to be stuff like that. But I doubt it's going to be like, oh, we're in the streets of Beijing. That's never going to happen because both countries have nukes. And Watch. Once a capital or like a main city is reached, the other country is launching nukes. So most likely those scenarios will never happen. So there's all for the most part going to be proxy wars. Regardless, if you see a power rising, don't treat it as the biggest threat in the world. Treat it as a potential partner. By using trade, by making money off them. You can still make money off them. You don't need to invade them to make money off them. And they can make money off you, sure. You're going to lose a couple of factories, but that's where subsidies come in. That's where a rich country can use its own tax dollars to feed its own citizens, which America is failing to do, especially in this pandemic. But anyways, that would be a better public policy, or even if foreign policy, than just building up the military and hoping for the best, you know? China's got 1 billion people, you know? Good luck.
Its hands. A foreign entity bent on taking America's spot as the dominant world power. The Cold War led to a rapid escalation in military spending from both powers, and marked the greatest spending until today. The US and Soviet Union both stocked up on nuclear weapons and spy planes and poured huge sums of money into beating each other in the new arena of spaceflight. Eventually, the Soviet Union dissolved and tensions relaxed. Military spending dropped as world leaders realized that maybe nuclear war is a bad idea. Then, in 2001, the US was whipped into a frenzy again with the 9/11 attacks. Popular support for military action skyrocketed, and we kicked off a misguided war on terror that we're still fighting today, at the expense of billions of dollars and far too many human lives.
That's the WikiLeaks
From
footage.
2001 on, with very few exceptions, the US military budget has kept increasing every year. And that's where we get back to the question,
and again,
why?
both parties are
Our
guilty of
perceived
this.
adversaries
This
in the
isn't
Middle
like
East don't have advanced
the Democrats
military
are against the military budget. No. It's both parties, both corporate parties, the leadership at least, loves the military, loves spending money on it.
So why do we keep
Corrupt
upgrading
action.
our equipment and buying new fighter jets, helicopters, and submarines? In a word, competition. In recent years, China has exploded onto the world stage as a capable
There you go,
economic
China.
and military power. In 1990, China only accounted for 2% of the world's military spending, but by 2018, it had jumped to 14%, the second largest behind the US. That's a massive increase, and the US was spooked. Chinese President Xi Jinping has stated that he wants to fully modernize China's army by the mid-2030s, and take their place as a premier world military power by the late 2040s. This goal includes building a military presence that can rival the US. China has already built 2 fully functional aircraft carriers, with another on the way, and invested in top-of-the-line fighter jets and a significant cyber warfare operation.
I think that's the boom, cyber warfare. That's the key right there. And honestly, like all this military equipment, I honestly think military tactics are like, I don't want to say a way of the past, but borderline way of the past. I know you can do like jamming and stuff, like of cyber warfare. You can jam it, so maybe. I mean, it's not completely out of the books. Like how useful, like even like let's take the basics of even of a tank. Most countries, America and China, let's say, for example, love building tanks. Same with Russia. They got the new Armada or whatever. Tanks, to me, and I would like to debate somebody on this. Would be very like, how are they still useful? We just saw like every like war footage I've seen recently, whether it be Syria, whether it be even Iraq, whether it be like Nagorno-Karabakh or whatever. Every time there's like a tank, you just see it get blown up by like a UAV missile or like a RPG. You're never gonna have these like big ass giant tank battles because all you need is literally a drone with like a C4 on it. Fly it in there, and that tank is fly it under the tank, and it's boom. See you later, bye. Or like a drone. There's no reason to have fleets of tanks anymore. Like a tank is obsolete. Once insurgents can take it out with an RPG with 2 rockets, you know, one to go past the first barrier and to the other to go past the other. You see you later, bye. Jets, you know, obviously air power is very important. I think honestly, as people like to make fun of Trump for the Space Force, I think space is what about an APC, dude? APC, anything are like APCs honestly are more useful, but APCs are there to like drop people off and then dip, cause they can protect you, but again, if you're fighting an industrialized nation, it is like it is scary. They know where you are. UAVs, drone is a UAV. You're gonna have robots. This is gonna be a disaster if a war actually breaks out. No one's going to be safe. Even aircraft carriers, there's missiles that can just sink an aircraft carrier with one missile if it strikes. Now, there's a bunch of aircraft anti-missile defenses on those ships, sure. But how many missiles can you block? All you got to do is send like 50 missiles at an aircraft carrier. You don't even have to have any jets. All you got to do is send missiles from land to shoot at an aircraft carrier. If 2 hit, that aircraft carrier is going down, and you lost, what, billions of dollars. Well, anti-ground, yeah, but like that's the thing. Like a UAV drone might be more useful than a tank in a modern battlefield. Because a drone can see everything. A tank can only see the horizon, you know? Artillery is more useful than a tank now. A tank, again, if a person with a rocket launcher could blow up a tank, again, World War II, this wasn't possible until the very end. It was like until 1944, handhelds against tanks were very uncommon. Well, you had like those like anti-tank rifles, which would like, you know, a bullet would penetrate. Yeah, sure. And you had like Panzerfaust later. But like all it takes is 2 rockets and a tank is gone. If you're in a city, look at like Syrian war footage. Look at like Nagorno-Karabakh. I think that's the best case. The one in Azerbaijan or Armenia. That's the most recent. They had drones, and hold on, let's look it up. I'll pull up a video. I don't know where we got into this. We're talking about military spending, and now we're focusing on military tactics. But tanks, drones. There you go. Just keywords. Boom. There you go. This is modern warfare for you. I don't know if this is against YouTube's terms, watching people blown up, but or Twitch's terms. Well, we'll give it a gander. We'll give it a gander. Look. All right. Boom. Tank right here. What are we looking at? We are currently from a perspective of an Azerbaijani drone. Or possibly Turkish. We don't know because military funding is also secret. We got a nice little modern tank. What is this? A T-70, T-80, T-90? Boom. Dead. Where do you hide? You're in an open field. Where do you go? A tank is the biggest target. Being a person on the ground is probably safer than being in a tank nowadays. Because a tank, you're a target. If you're just in a little truck, you're probably safer. If you're fighting a modern military. Now, if you're fighting an insurgency, different conversation. Tanks are still kind of useful because they got to get close to the tank to use their RPGs. But, you know, in 20 years, those insurgents now are using drones. Insurgents now are using drones. Again, strap C4 to a drone, fly it under a tank, blow it up. Fly 5 drones. 4 get shot down, the 5th one hits, boom, gone. How much did you spend to blow up 1 tank? Maybe $4,000 if you get the good drones, you know? Look, another tank, boom. Position. What do we got? Very effective. Very effective tank right there. Did a lot of work. Did a lot of work to help him out, right? Again, modern warfare is completely... This is like... I don't want to say this is going to be like if a war actually breaks out. This might be like World War I type of like revolutionizing shit. Like all the old generals are going to be like, no, tanks are useful. We got to use aircraft carriers and shit. And then like the first battle happens and then they have nothing left. It's going to be like that. It's like in World War I where they're using like horse charges at machine guns. It's going to be like shit like that, dude. Anyways, back to military funding and why America is spending way too much.
This last part is crucial, because the hyper-modern US military relies on information-enabled equipment, and if China can find a way to remove those advantages, US supremacy goes out the window.
Right.
Combine the rapid rise of China with the constant threat of old adversaries
This is why you don't cut trade deals. Once you cut the trade deals, countries start to hate each other. Okay? If you have trade deals, China's not going to want to attack America because you're going to lose so much money. The politicians are not going to support a war. If Xi Jinping goes off on his own, it's like, we're going to fucking invade America. All the politicians are going to be like, oh shit, we might assassinate him because we're going to lose a lot of money if we actually have going to war with America. No, most people don't want to go to war. Most people want to make money. And in history, going to war would make you money. Nowadays, you can make money through international trade, which a lot of people, fucking hate, but, it does help society. What you got to do is you got to make sure you got to take care of the citizens that do lose their jobs as a result of trade. Muy importante.
Russia, and you can begin to see why the US feels the need to keep increasing its military budget. The return of what's called great power competition, the kind we haven't seen since World War II, has been the spark to ignite this latest wave of worldwide military spending. Unfortunately, this is a self-reinforcing cycle that goes all the way back to at least World War II. The great powers are embroiled in conflict, many are decimated in the process, the US steps in to provide military support for allies and deterrence against enemies, the USSR sees the US as an existential threat and builds up their own military, the US sees this and gets spooked and increases their own spending.
There you go.
This goes back and forth until the Soviet Union collapses. Rinse and repeat with every new perceived threat. But that's not the only problem America's hyper-militarization causes. Having taken on the role of world police for so long, what happens when the US decides to pull out of a region? It leaves a power vacuum that threatens the safety of the entire region because we never gave
terrorist
those countries a chance to build their own
situations.
defenses. Other nations that the US is on less than friendly terms with see what happens when the US wants something and will feel the need to build up their own defenses. Diplomacy is used less and less often as we have to justify our massive military budget, which convinces other nations that the US
not
is
for
a
long,
threat
dude.
and prompts them
China's
to build
making
their own
moves,
militaries.
but
And
China's
the
doing it on the smart way. They're doing the Belt Road Initiative or whatever in Africa, where instead of going to war and invading those countries, they're doing it a nicer way. It's like, hey, we're going to trade with you if you let us have a military base in your area. We're not going to invade you. We're going to actually support your, maybe it'd be a political party. It could be a political regime in Africa. But we're also going to do some infrastructure. We're gonna build roads. We're going to build electricity in rural areas. You don't have to pay for anything. We might even give you jobs as long as you give us a lease on your land for, I don't know, 50 years. So, yeah, what are your thoughts? And most poor countries in Africa or, you know, even in Southeast Asia, they're like, oh, yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. Now, so US does it in Israel. US does this in, this is Latin America is, America's bitch. Like that, like, that's what Latin America is there to exist for. Like, sadly. Yeah, the Middle East, honestly, Iran was a very stable country was a progressive country in like the 50s and 60s. I forgot exactly when everything went to shit. But America there was a sheikh, the king or whatever. I forgot who it was. And then he got ousted by, it wasn't even the communist. It wasn't even it was like a socialist, democratically elected leader. And then America said, no. That's too close to communism. And they were against the Soviet Union, keep that in mind. Those party that got elected was against the Soviet Union. And against America. They wanted independence, whatever. They just didn't want, you know, a king ruling over them. So then America came and is like, no, we're going to bring back the king that we had before and still. And then the king cracked down. Then, like, whatever, I don't know if it's a decade later. It might have been a decade later. Let's just say a decade later. Then the Islamic Revolution happens because people are like, what the fuck? You know, we have these oppressive Western forces come in and fuck with us. We can't stand this anymore. So they killed the king's family, and now you have a Islamic regime there that doesn't care for the rights of its people. You know. Why? Because America fucked up. America got too greedy. We wanted Iran's oil. That's why. Britain and America love Iran's oil.
Continues.
World loved
Spending
Iran's
large
oil.
sums of money on a military is not necessarily a bad thing, unless it saps resources from other critical projects like healthcare, which the US does, but that's a topic for another video. The real problem with this worldwide increased spending is that it indicates we have entered another era of violent competition between world powers. When nations build new bombers and nuclear submarines, it's because they intend to have them as an option when the time comes. You can say all militaries are strictly for deterrence, but look around.
Not.
The US has been fighting this war for almost 20 years, long after it's become apparent that the conflict began under false pretenses.
Yeah.
We've dropped atomic bombs on densely populated cities, firebombed plenty of others, and have come literally one decision from global nuclear war in the past. If war between great powers breaks out, or even between lesser powers with nuclear weapons, that's it. The gloves come off, and the massive militaries the world has built over the last 2 decades will be used to their fullest potential.
Could you imagine if you're like working all your life, you finally get like a good job, and you're like, oh god, everything's going great for me, and then a war breaks out because some insecure fuck, I don't know, was like, oh, this village got taken over, you know, so we gotta fight for it, and then like a war breaks out. Dude, that's a very likely scenario. That's a very likely scenario. Whether it would be an irrational Western leader or an irrational Eastern leader, like Xi Jinping, who's, Out of this fucking mind right now. Dude, I love me some good China memes. Again, I don't know. He doesn't really look like Winnie the Pooh, but the fact that they banned it, you know, I can see it now.